that is called Elevating Mountains and the Cryosphere to the Forefront of International Processes. I think given the discussion that is taking place currently at this COP, this title is perfect because we are in fact in the middle of some important negotiation. And I think for the very first time, mountains have been, well, let's say included and supported by many governments and organizations to get more space in this climate change process. So very quickly, I'm Rosa Laura Romeo, and I am the coordinator of the Mountain Partnership Secretariat. The Mountain Partnership is the only United Nations alliance devoted to support mountain peoples and ecosystems. It was founded more than 20 years ago, back in 2002. And we are also responsible for celebrating the International Mountain Day. And this year, the theme of the International Mountain Day is restoring mountain ecosystem. And we are conducting a number of activities jointly also with UNEP. And we will have a side event tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the FAO pavilion. So the Mountain Partnership is, at the moment, is very big. It started with very small countries and organizations, less than 40, and now 20 years later, we have more than 500, including a very vibrant civil society membership and several governments and UN organizations, of course. Well, we are here because we are all passionate, interest, committed to promote sustainable mountain development, the mountain agenda. We know how mountains are affected by climate change and other very important global changes. I'm not going to read all my notes because I'm sure you are very familiar. This is quite an intimate circle here, but I would like just to flag two things. One is that we are at the beginning of the 5-year of action for the sustainable development of mountain region. This is a very important framework, political framework for giving more coherence and more power to our joint initiatives. And as Mountain Partnership, we are very, very committed to work with you all and support our collective work to ensure that this 5-year can really be relevant, can really be a moment of change for mountain people and mountain ecosystems. 2025 is also going to be the International Year of Glacier Preservation. I guess our friend Anil will tell us more about this. This is another very important opportunity, to bring mountains more to the forefront and to continue this collaboration to achieve more results. What we always say is that mountains should get out of the bubble, so they should really be understood as relevant ecosystems for the entire planet. So mountains should be a concern not only for us that are somehow related to mountains for our work, because we live there, because we were born there, because of our interests. Mountains should be a global concern. And I think through this 5-year of action, to the International Year of Glacier Preservation, 2022 was also the International Year of Sustainable Mountain Development. We need to build on these opportunities to really build this awareness that mountains are relevant for all of us, wherever we live, because from mountains, we get water, but also other very important ecosystem services. And they have such a key role for the balance, for the future of the planet. So I think our first speaker hasn't arrived yet, if I'm not mistaken. So I would suggest that we move to our second speaker, and that is Alenka Smerkoli. She's the Secretary General of the Alpine Convention and very active in supporting the mountain agenda, of course. I think you have a presentation. Are you okay talking there? Do you want?
I'm fine. I can also come up.
As you prefer, as it's more convenient for you, as you see better.
No, it's for me. I don't need to see. The others can see, I guess. It's a really a big pleasure to be among friends and also to make new connections today for me. So what am I going to say is a bit of an overview of what we do connected to what the issues that we are raising. And we can move to the first slides. This is about land use. Land use has always been a challenge in the Alpine region, with less than 20% of its surface suitable for human activities. Most settlements and also, of course, infrastructure are concentrated on the valley floors, which are also essential for agriculture as well as for ecological connectivity. Climate change, of course, is exacerbating the conflicts between different users and uses of this land. And here, I think it's quite visible. All the darker red parts are where the settlements are, and the rest is mountains, of course. One of the most acute current problems in this respect is the conflict between nature conservation and the production of the renewable energy. And since the Alpine regions as a whole have a lower population density than the rest of their countries, there are very high expectations of them in terms of energy production. So big conflict. In particular, due to their water reserves and strong gradients, the Alps have been a traditional producer of the energy, of course, especially hydroelectricity, since already the end of the 19th century. However, the hydropower potential in the Alps is nearly fully tapped, with less than 10% of river stretches in good condition. So, well, it's the end of the hydropower in the Alps. But still, expectations are very high. On the other hand, also building new reservoirs, for instance, for pump storage to compensate the irregular supply of other renewables, destroys very valuable high altitude ecosystems, such as high moors, which are essential for climate change mitigation. Solar radiation, even in winter, and wind are strong in the Alps, but power plants at high altitude have also a major impact on biodiversity and landscape, especially since building the long access of roads is often a necessity and is often required. The Alpine region harbors high-altitude habitats that host unique flora and fauna adapted to extreme conditions, and rising temperatures and altered precipitation patterns are threatening the delicate balance of alpine ecosystems, jeopardizing numerous species. In particular, high-altitude habitats are moving further up the peaks and therefore shrinking due to the impacts of climate change. On the other hand, new ecosystems are being created where the glaciers recede, and they need to be protected quickly. Restoring and preserving the biodiversity hotspot in the Alps, and indeed in mountains all over the world, is not only essential for ecological integrity, but also for the ecosystem services which contribute to the resilience of the regions in the face of climate change. Indeed, the Alpine region has been described as a water tower of Europe, but now, due to the changes in precipitation patterns and accelerated melting of glaciers, it is confronting the dual challenge of increasing risk of floods and droughts on the other side. In the past summer, water supplies had to be brought up to cattle in alpine meadows. This has never happened before. Some mountain huts had to close early due to lack of drinking water, and some were destroyed by landslides. So a lot of things and events we have never faced before. And as water resources become scarcer, the potential for conflicts over shared water resources rises, both in the Alps and in the region downstream. This reinforces the urgent need for sustainable cross-border water management solutions, of course, first strategies. The Alpine Convention, signed in 1991, commits the 8 Alpine countries and the European Union to protect and sustainably develop the European Alps. It encompasses a framework convention and 8 protocols. While none of the protocols are specifically dedicated to climate change has consistently been a priority in our successive multi-annual work programs. A driving force in the convention's climate action is the Alpine Climate Board, a separate working body with representatives of member countries, but also observers, which serves as a platform for building forces in fostering collaborative efforts. The Alpine Climate Board designed a strategic framework, which is the foundation for joint climate action in the Alpine Convention. We call it Climate Target System 2050. And based on this, also measures, meaning we call them midterm action plan, Climate Action Plan 2.0. And this framework that you see more up on the left-hand side it provides a roadmap for adaptation and mitigation, offering a clear vision and also proposing concrete measures to address climate change in all relevant sectors. The Alpine Climate Board is now supporting the implementation. So from strategy, we came to the implementation, and this is, of course, the most difficult part. And of course, also during the years, we have collected, we have a collection of good practices on cross-sectoral energy governance. And this is currently in preparation also to share with the world. But this will basically show how important the collaborative efforts can deflect conflicts and develop synergies. So it's a lot about the narrative as well. And furthermore, one of the priorities of the Slovenian presidency of the Alpine Convention is climate change education in schools. We organized an international conference this September on the subject, and a collection of good practices is ongoing. And recommendations from different, from the conference, from the collection of best practices will be submitted to our next ministerial conference. The Alpine Convention also recognizes the importance of exchanging knowledge and experiences with other mountain regions. Personally, it's one of my really favorite parts. And I think this is really, really important for the Alpine Convention, but also, of course, all other mountain regions in the world. We need to exchange in order to be stronger and in order to try and unite different voices. And this is what Rosa Laura said in the beginning, and this is what I really try to push forward also within the Alpine Convention. This is why, of course, we have been engaged in the Mountain Partnership for a long time, as well as in bilateral exchanges. Within Europe, we regularly cooperate with the Carpathian Convention. Of course, this is our sister convention, but also with the Pyrenees. And beyond, we exchange a lot, especially in the last years with the Hindu Kush Himalayas, but also with the Andes. The Alpine Convention welcomes the 5 years of action and actively participates in bundling actions in this framework. And by coordinating efforts within the designated timeframe, we do create, I think, quite a dynamic network together and also maximize the impact of the respective initiatives. And in events such as today's session, we can amplify our collective voice to raise awareness at the global level of the unique challenges faced by mountain regions. This is important for the implementation of the parties' agreement, but also of the Kunming-Paris Agreement, but also of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, since the climate and biodiversity crisis and ultimately the livelihoods of people in and around the mountains are intrinsically connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alenka. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's so important to count on the experience of the Alpine Convention while we look at promoting other regional transboundary cooperation and also to work all together at global level. Okay, so now let me move to Anil Mishra. Anil Mishra is has a very long title, Chief of Section Hydrological System, Climate Change and Adaptation, and of UNESCO, and is the person that will be in charge of the International Year of Glacier Preservation from the UNESCO side. Anil.
Thank you, Rosa Laura, for having me here. I come from mountain country, from Nepal. So whenever you talk about mountain, I feel like home. And to talk about mountain and glacier, it gives me a pleasure that this mountain year resolution, one of the champion country, Kyrgyzstan, took a lead in United Nations General Assembly. They first came to UNESCO in 2021, and there was a resolution from UNESCO's General Conference monitoring glacier in the mountains. So UNESCO had always one step ahead before United Nations General Assembly. And there is already mountain provides lots of ecosystem services, as you have mentioned, most important being water resources. Out of more than 22 mountain ecosystem services that it provides to upstream and downstream countries. And one of the things that UNESCO offers is a living laboratory biosphere reserves. We have more than 400 mountain biosphere reserves all over the world, where we can witness the changes, vulnerability, but also some solutions from the local community, indigenous community, so that we gather in the living laboratories of biosphere, UNESCO designated sites like natural heritage site, biosphere reserves. Now, Cryosphere is very much related to mountain, and in 1960s, UNESCO called for monitoring of glacier. And that text that UNESCO called for monitoring of glacier is in the 2022 UNGA resolution, which declared 2025 as International Year of Glacier Preservation, and 21st of March every year, just before a day, the 22nd March is perhaps World Water Day, will be Day of Observance of Glacier from 2025. And this is, of course, led by another mountain country from Central Asia, Tajikistan, but supported by all member states in the United Nations. And they task UNESCO and our colleague WMO, we will be coordinating this effort together. We already had a brainstorming session in July hosted by UNESCO, and Mountain Partnership was there, and some of you were there. We developed concept note. Now we are going to finalize that concept note with our colleagues in WMO, and that will invite to express your interest, how you want to contribute. We want to achieve awareness raising, improving scientific understanding, setting some of the milestone, maybe perhaps establishing some monitoring systems, but also communication outreach we are going to do. And in that process, next Friday in United Nations, there will be establishment of a friend of glacier at the political level, at the ambassador level. UNESCO and WMO will be present, presenting our views, how we are going to coordinate. I will be there. So this is both at the highest level, but also we work very much with a scientific organization. For instance, UNESCO developed a glossary of snow hydrology, glossary of mass balance. We also work with the World Glacier Monitoring Systems in annual report, and we created snow and ice working group in the Latin America. Rosa Laura, you attended, and we also published Andean Glacier and Water Atlas, which provides recommendation on adaptation. And currently, we launched two projects in Central Asia. One is assessment of snow, glacier, and water sources funded by Global Environmental Facility. The second project, hazard mapping of glacier lake outburst floods. So these efforts will contribute to International Year of Glacier Preservation. And I would like to invite all of you, scientific community, member states, NGOs, conventions, to come together. You can contact UNESCO and WMO colleagues so that we all work together to make, of course, to enhance our understanding, help country to adapt, but also create awareness at the highest level. I think with that, I would like to close my brief information about International Year of Cryosphere. And we have, there will be an International Glacier Conference, but also we will have several regional events. So also come forward, propose, and both UNESCO and WMO, again, will launch this call for expression. There are several opportunities to cooperate so that we can provide contribution, and it will be a collective effort, shared responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. And I think we all look forward to working together for ensuring a big success for this important international year. And this is a nice transition to the next speaker, who is Jan Lisk, the President of the Commission for Weather, Climate, Hydrological, Marine and Related Environmental Services and Applications at the World Meteorological Organization. And as you've heard, he's also coordinating from the WMO side, the International Year of Glacier Preservation. Jan, please.
Well, good evening, everybody. Many thanks for the introduction, the world's longest job title there. Apologies for that. Basically, I'm the president of services at the WMO. Let's keep it nice and simple. We have 3 bodies now at the WMO. We had a major reform in 2019. We've got an infrastructure commission, intergovernmental body that looks after all the data, the observations, the modelling. And I have got all the services side, which is the application to various areas. For example, disaster risk reduction, aviation, marine, agriculture, the list goes on, even energy. We have a study group on renewable energy sources as well. So actually, you know, the very first talk, I've already been motivated to go back and have a bit more look about what's in scope and what's not in scope for that. The third body is research, which cuts across everything that we do, of course. So WMO is the UN specialised agency for weather, water, climate and related environmental applications. Okay, so it's quite a broad scope. We've been around for 150 years. We're celebrating our 150th year this year. It used to be called the International Meteorological Organization. And so our core task really is to be the UN's voice, you know, on issues related to weather, water and climate. Obviously, we're co-hosts of the IPCC, so everything that's going on this week is a big deal for us and what have you. And partnerships with other UN agencies and other bodies around the world is absolutely fundamental to what we do. So I just want to mention a couple of other things before I just get on to the sort of the main bit of what I'm going to be talking about today. One of the questions is what is it that WMO does, when it comes to the cryosphere, to what we do in terms of the poles and what we do in the mountain areas. Well, we have a panel which is at the executive council level, so that's the second most supreme body within the WMO, which actually looks at polar, high mountain observations, research and services as well. Okay, so that panel provides that overarching framework that oversees the activities of everything that WMO does within those various areas. It's a very active area. We take most of the experts who participate on EC4s, as we call it, do come from outside the WMO community. Okay, we're very well aware that a lot of the expertise that's outside our core sort of mandate. So it's a really active, really interesting area. We'll be meeting next face-to-face in Norway in just a few weeks' time, early in the new year. That team will be getting together. And what we've also done this year, we've got a new strategic objective of the whole organisation for 24 to 27, which is strategic objective 1.5. I won't test you on the numbers later on, But that is all about mainstreaming the cryosphere sort of services side and the value chain within the WMO community. So we've actually got something, strategically to hang off in terms of cryosphere matters. And probably as important as anything, it gives us some dedicated funding to actually support those activities as well moving forward. So that's quite an exciting development. Anil's gone now, but I was interested in what he was saying about the this UN sort of declaration about the importance of monitoring glaciers. I'm just going to read you an extract. Thank you very much for this, Solania. This is very well timed. That basically the WMO requested its member states to organise observations at high elevation and of glaciers' length and thickness, and to share this data to aid in the solution of problems that may present themselves in the future. When do you think that was written? 1879. Okay, so that's how embedded, the whole issue with glaciers, and it definitely does show some really good foresight moving forward, and never has that been more than case than is at the moment. As Anil said, we're involved in co-leading the International Year of Glaciers Preservation 2025 in collaboration, as we said, with UNESCO. Solagna's heavily involved in leading that piece of work and mainstreaming it through everything that we're doing within the WMO. The other thing that we do, certainly on the infrastructure side, which is all the observations, the modelling, everything, is to go for much more of an integrated approach to the way, and actually we integrate all aspects of water. So whether that's freshwater, marine, or indeed frozen water within the way that we model the Earth's atmosphere. These days, well, we have for many years, it's a global business. I mean, you've probably heard this a million times, the weather knows no boundaries. We can't forecast the weather if we don't know what the weather's doing all over the planet at every minute of every day. And actually doing things like snow cover is fundamentally important for the radiation balance, and obviously, various other thermodynamic sort of considerations of that as well. So us actually doing a much better integrated job on cryosphere matters is fundamental if we're going to do better weather forecasts as well. And we can feed all that application of science back into better warnings and better services as well. In the interest of time, I'm just going to sort of go just wrap this up so that we can listen to everybody else rather than me talk about what the WMO is doing. But just kind of summary, the last thing I really want to say is how important it is to actually get this policy piece absolutely mainstreamed. Everything that we do, we've got 193 members, all over the world of the WMO. We very much are a bottom-up driven organisation. It's all about what the members want, which defines our priorities. So actually having really, top-level policies that we can point to and bring to the attention of members so that they can actually join up what they want to do at that local and regional level is fundamentally important to what the WMO is about. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions in a bit, but it'd be great to hear those questions. I've missed out all kinds of little details in this, Solagna. You've always got to keep your audience wanting more. So with that, I'll call it a day and look forward to the rest of the presentations and any questions. Many thanks.
Yeah. And I would like to say that basically, I think all the organizations that are speaking today are members of the Mountain Partnership. We have an excellent collaboration with WMO. I think it was 2010 that a meeting on high mountains was organized, and yes, I was there. So I mean, it's and Patrick Talas, the Secretary General,
Who finishes work
in a few days. Yes, I know.
3 weeks.
Yes. So Patrick Talas was at our global meeting in Rome. I think it was 2017. So we have a very good collaboration with WMO, and we really value that, and with other partners as well, of course. Okay, so now let me move to the next speaker that also has to catch a flight, I think soon, Onno. Onno Roer. He's the general manager of the agency for the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, and also a very active and key member of the Mountain Partnership collaboration that we also highly value. And please, you have the floor. Do you have a PowerPoint? No.
No, I never have a PowerPoint. I used to say I don't like Bill Gates, but since other tech people came around, I now really like them. So it's great to be here. And see how this dialogue is evolving. The Aga Khan Agency for Habitat was created by the Aga Khan, His Highness the Aga Khan, I should say, about 8 years ago, in response to, on the one hand, a long-standing body of work on helping communities deal with natural hazard risk in high mountains, and on the other hand, the realization triggered by the Atabat Lake disaster in 2010 in Pakistan that these natural hazards were becoming much, much, much worse, and therefore we needed a much more ambitious approach. And actually, strangely, subsequent to the creation of the Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, His Highness made climate change the defining identity of our network, which previously it really wasn't. It was community development, which, by the way, also very useful if you try to work on climate change, but it's a very different focus. And when on the 16th interview before I got the job, which was the last interview, His Highness interviewed me. So I met him at that time, and he gave me only one thing to take away. What he said was, I want you to figure out a way, not just to see how we can leverage our work to help mountain communities do better, despite the fact that the risks are getting worse. I want you to make us an advocate for that in the international arena, because I see what the coastal and island people have done. They have been so effective, and honestly, the mountain community hasn't been even remotely as effective. So this is what I want you to do. So that's the reason why I'm a very active member of the Mountain Partnership. It was a straight instruction from my boss. But although I'm not from a mountainous country, I'm from the Netherlands. Like most Dutch people, I love mountains very much. The second largest sports society of our country is the Ski and Mountaineering Society, because we all go to the Alps. Now, what have I seen in a few years of being part of events like this? Is I see that things are coming together, but I also see that we're not there yet. But today, actually, what is very interesting is that the key players are all in the room and we're talking to each other. We're not really talking very much to other people. But you got to first talk to each other and agree what you're going to do before you can talk to other people and win the battle, because there really is a battle to be won. It's actually shocking when you think that out there in COP, they don't think mountains are part of the dialogue on climate change. It's very clear that either it's a cynical disinterest or they are people who don't know what mountains are. But there is a thing about mountains, which is that even in many mountainous countries, they are, relatively speaking, marginal, because they're remote, and the people who live there live in small villages. They're not typically the ones who dominate the political discourse. Of course, I live in Switzerland, where you could say that these things are all very different, but it's still the same in a way. The higher up you go, the more marginal it becomes from a political perspective. I live in Geneva, that's where it's important, right? So there is a thing about mountains, although it also has a parallel with coast, which is that everybody loves it, right? Because you go once, you love a mountain. That part is there. Now, why am I here again at COP? Because I don't think we should give up, no matter how strange it is to be in the UAE talking about this agenda against almost again pushing against a door that seems mostly closed. But I think that with the people in the room, we can actually craft a message. And the message, to me, should not be about how terrible it is and how all the glaciers are gone and the water towers are no longer there, we're all going to die. No, actually, if you look at the work that we do, and some of you do, in fact, most of these organizations in the room, you can actually work with mountain people and people from the mountain. They can do better, despite the fact that the risk gets worse. But it requires community mobilization, it requires high-flying science, it requires a quality of planning in mountain communities that is as sophisticated as the planning in big cities like New York or Mumbai, because the land is so scarce and the risks are so devastating, but it can be done. And one of the things of our network is we like to work in Afghanistan, Tajikistan, northern Pakistan, and Syria, places that's not a mountainous country, obviously, places that are difficult, because one of the things we want to show is that difficult things are possible even in the most difficult places in the world. and that way build a platform for the agenda. So we'll be with you until we get there. I just really feel that it's time to take the next step and that we're ready for it as a partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ono. As I was saying at the beginning, I think we are together, we are getting close. We had hope for this COP, in fact, because there was an agenda item on mountains that was proposed by Andorra and backed by several governments. And Kyrgyzstan was also a very strong supporter. And then at the very last moment, it was, well, disappeared, let's say. But we see what will emerge now from the Global Outstake final document. And there are still requests to have a dedicated dialogue on mountains and climate change, as there is one on ocean. It's clear that more countries should speak up and support this in writing, in speaking, because it's easy in bilateral meetings say, yes, I support, but then when they go to the real moment of truth, as we say in Italian, then this is where and when countries should really express themselves. But I think I've never seen so many events and so much energy as at this COP for mountains. And as I always like to refer to the slogan we used in 2002 for the International Year of Mountains. That was, we are all mountain people. And I think that slogan is still very valid, because regardless of where you live, where you are affected by mountains, and something that you need to understand, especially now that we have the political evidence, we have the scientific evidence, we have the facts. So it's really time to make this into action. But I stop here because I'm very passionate about this, but I'll stop. And the next speaker is Eric Smith. Eric is the vice president of the Aspen International Mountain Foundation. And those of you that were so lucky to be in Aspen with us last year could benefit from the warm welcome of Eric and his colleagues, and of Aspen, of course. He has a lot of experience with the private sector, and I'm sure his insight could be very beneficial for us. Eric, please.
Thanks, Laura. So I was really distressed to hear that the mountain agenda item for the COP was taken off the agenda by the president. I found that out this afternoon, and
Disclose too much? All the modalities, please.
okay. In any event, hopefully at the next COP we can bring mountains back in formally into COP 29. So on behalf of AIMF and the North American and Caribbean region that we represent on the Mountain Partnership Steering Committee, I want to welcome all of you. It's so great to see those of you who were in Aspen last year. It was a very successful meeting and provided great momentum to our collective efforts to promote progress in mountain sustainability. I thought it would be useful to summarize what the US government has been doing over the last year. But first, a word about AIMF's activities and role. Following the meeting last year, we got together with all the communities in our region in the Rocky Mountains, looking toward building a regional effort to move forward a climate action agenda. This is still in the formative stages, but it is hoped that the 7 or 8 communities and counties can forge a collective effort to advance reductions in greenhouse gas emissions in the Rocky Mountains. We also are hard at work seeking to have the United States finally to join the Mountain Partnership. As you know, our state of Colorado was the first US state to join, and we were really pleased to have that. And the state of Colorado was very instrumental in supporting the global meeting last year. As you may have heard, the US government has made some significant strides in advancing the climate agenda, much of which will benefit mountain environments. In 2022, the Biden administration signed a law which pegged new climate-related investments at the highest level ever, over $780 billion over 10 years, which are targeted at energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by over 40% by 2030. The breadth of investments in climate are truly significant. These can be summarized as follows. So, and I apologize for this detail, but I thought it'd be good to kind of go over to give you a sense of what the U.S. is trying to do in this area. So there'll be $128 billion for renewable energy and grid energy storage, $30 billion for nuclear power, $12 billion for electrical vehicle incentives, $14 billion for home energy efficiency upgrades, $22 billion for home energy supply improvements, and $37 billion for advanced manufacturing, $32 billion for investment in rural economies, racial justice in farming, forest lands, and coastal habitats. $3 billion in tax incentives. Actually, there are an incredible number of tax incentives throughout this legislation. And a lot of them are for carbon capture and storage at existing power plants. And $3 billion to reconnect neighborhoods harmed by infrastructure, freeway removal, investments in sustainable aviation fuel, grants for high voltage electric power transmission and decarbonization of port equipment, and purchases of rural electric cooperative debt alongside other assistance. In short, it's a wide range of money available for everything throughout the energy efficiency and climate area. And I apologize for the detail, but I wanted you to get a sense of what, for the first time, really, the United States is trying to do to advance the climate agenda. Why is this so important? It is estimated that well over 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions globally are caused by the world's largest polluters. First, China at around 25%, and the US at around 15%. Let's face it, it is up to these two countries to take the lead in dealing with climate change. One development is worth noting. Earlier this year, China and the US met on climate issues, and for the first time, China mentioned that it would develop disciplines to deal with methane pollution, over 80 times more damaging than CO2 emissions, as you all know. This week, the US went much further and announced that it had adopted an order requiring the oil and gas industry in the US to stop methane venting and flaring. While quite significant, the schedule for such reductions is simply not fast enough. All of us, members of the Mountain Partnership, must redouble our advocacy here and everywhere at the national and local level to persuade governments, private businesses, and NGOs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as the #1 priority for securing real sustainability in mountain environments. This is not to minimize all the other priorities that we must pursue to improve sustainability in mountains, but simply to highlight what must be our first priority. One of our goals should be to bring the private sector, together with NGOs, into the Mountain Partnership. Frankly, we have collectively not done a good job in this area, and we need to do much better. And actually, when I was listening to Ono, being a citizen of the Netherlands, I just wanted to let him know that I have climbed the highest mountain in the Netherlands, which happens to be on the island of Saba in the Caribbean. I think it's like 1,000 feet high or something like that. So anyway, well, thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of your communications on mountain sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really would like to highlight how the Aspen International Mountain Forum is doing an amazing work to support the Mountain Partnership in many different ways, and we hope to continue and strengthen this collaboration. So now let me move to a very old, long-standing friend, Gramenos Mastroianni. He's an Italian diplomat. He's currently the Deputy Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean. but we still think of him as a mountain champion. He has been for many years the chair of the Mountain Partnership Steering Committee, and he has supported the mountain agenda in many, many important ways. Gramenos, please.
Thank you. Good evening. We are all tired, but there is one special reason why I'm very happy. This is probably the only side event where my title is shorter than average. But I still have to take a long breath. Senior Deputy Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean. Okay. I am is not interesting for anybody. We are. It's more interesting. We are an intergovernmental organization of 43 states, all the states of the European Union, plus all the other states around the Mediterranean. Together with me, there is Ines Duarte, who is our climate finance column. I'm not here to present. I'm here to ask for your help. And it reflects my background as a specialist of climate and security. Not even at the scope, there will be a line about mountains. Few people realize that the geostrategic bomb lies with mountains. It is forecasted, for instance, that at a certain point, Himalayan, Dukush, and Pamir glaciers will collapse, not melt gradually in proportion with increasing temperature. Beyond a certain point, they collapse. And if I say this to a fundraising meeting in London or Paris, they look at me like, oh, I'm so sorry about the loss of the mountain beauty, this kind of things, which are all very precious things, but basically what they think inside, maybe unconsciously, is none of my business. And maybe they forget that the Roman Empire crumbled because of internal problems, but above all because of waves of migrations that we generically dubbed the barbarians, but which were originally movements of Central Asian populations due to a climate fluctuation, which is simply ridiculous compared to what await us. Well, if the glaciers in Himalaya and the Kush and Pamir thaw, it is a tragedy for mountain people. And this is already something which is not visualized. If you go to the mountains, it's because you want to produce something that is very narrowly linked with the special ecosystem of the mountains. If you want to produce washing machines, you make them in the plain. People in the mountains are linked to their ecosystem, which is, I mean, in this community, you'll know it's possibly the most exposed to impacts and change. When I tell this story to people who are not in our community, they immediately think about the poetical peasant who grows quinoa in the Andes, which is also part of the problem. But they forget that we're talking about huge investments in tourism, hydropower, and this kind of things. If the data has not changed, that I remember from the time I was active with the Mountain Partnership, we're talking about 900 million people at immediate risk of migration. But I don't have to talk about water towers and disassembly. It's a problem down in the valleys. With the monzonic climate to the south, if the Himalayan glaciers collapse, the system that ensures a balanced distribution of water to the plains crumbles, and in these plains, they will have to face an unmanageable alternance of droughts and floods. A system of rivers that irrigates plains inhabited by 1.4 billion people will not function anymore. And if it is now commonplace to motivate the Second World War, not with the lunacy of one or another dictator, but due to the pressure of the 1929 crisis, well, let's put the things on the plates of the scale. 20 million people, for instance, in Germany, not only in Germany, belonging to the German middle class, were induced into voting for Hitler because they lost the value of their savings. Here we're talking about 400 million people who will lose rice, water, roads, in a place in which 4 states, India, China, Pakistan, and Russia, have nuclear bombs. So it's not my job anymore, but let me say that if for one more time the mountain issue was neglected in the scope, we should go out there crying, shouting. But still, the Mediterranean that has no Himalaya is in the same situation. This is why I'm here to ask for your help. The Mediterranean is another climate security bond, second fastest warming area in the world. And food security, just to start with it, is half doomed by the fact that we have the fastest sea level rise in the world. A Mediterranean that will rise by 1 meter before the end of the century, but just 20 centimeters in just 10 years, will salinize the coastal plains, where 40% of our production is located, with soft spots like the Delta of the Nile. The Delta of the Nile could be salinized in 10, 15 years. So half of our security, there's nothing more we can do. Even if we stick beyond 1.5 degrees, this is going to happen. But what happens if the rest of our water security blows up? And the rest of our water security is in the mountains. All the Mediterranean basin is coastal plains surrounded by mountains, with a very few exceptions. If they're not mountains, they are technically hills, but the story is the same. So I said, I'm here to ask for your help. I'm trying to convince the European Union, member states, to launch a program of adaptation of Mediterranean mountains, an integrated one. We're lucky we have the Alpine Convention, we have the Carpathians, we have no atlas at all, for instance. But this is not enough. It's not anymore an alpine challenge. It is a regional challenge. The same thing that happens at COP is happening with my interlocutors. Yes, I have some good news with Swedish Development Corporation, but it's enough to start a little pilot. I need your help. I need your help with facts, documents, data that you have, trying out with me. I make it a point, I will try to convince all our stakeholders, which are states and the European Union, that this is absolutely necessary and it's urgent. If half is gone by salt and we cannot do anything about it, and we let the rest crumble because we don't get into some basic adaptation measures, and above all, because we don't act to keep mountain people in the mountains. Another paradox. Even with expert policymakers, there is this idea that the ecosystem would be fantastic without the human being, which is absolutely not true. If our shepherds go away, I don't have to explain it to this assembly. So, world meteorological organizations, we had long discussions, things like that. You have powerful voices. You have powerful voices in science. Help me. Thank you.
Now you can tell why we love him, right? He's a very strong advocate for mountains and very, very, very convincing. Unfortunately, the reality is there. So we were supposed to have 2 more speakers, Mr. Shah, who I don't think is here, and Sari Sherman from the BNP Paribas. She was in a previous meeting, and I don't know if she's able to join, but she had a video that perhaps we can share. She's working for the BNP Paribas, but she's also a very active mountain climber, activist, etc. And she has filmed this, well, a real film, but she has prepared a clip for us today. So let's see this clip, and then if she doesn't arrive, we have a few minutes for question and answer in case there are. Thank you.
Much of what we're seeing today is changes that were projected to happen, say, mid-century or even in 100 years' time, and yet are happening within the last 10 years.
I was here in 2014, walking significantly higher where the ice level was, and now it's all the way back there. You can't even see any ice here. Completely gone.
84% of plant and animal species in mountains are at risk of extinction.
We know first that some species are really fragile, are endangered. It's the first steps in understanding and wanting to protect it. It's that we're just part of something bigger than us.
My name is Sarisha Mann, and I'm here to show you the Green Mountain Pioneers.
That's across government and policy, innovation in communities and industry, and scientists that are trying to study and understand this issue.
that it's really important to focus on sustainability, not only the ecological one.
So we are a modeling region for sustainable tourism where other regions all over the Alps can learn from.
We're actually creating value within the community.
70 to 80% of CO2 footprint come from actually arriving here. So that's where we started right away.
You've been at the forefront of mobilizing action from companies and investors.
Getting people around the table that usually don't work together.
The inter-regional exchange is what needs to happen more of.
The message really has to be, we can do it. It's not something that is impossible.
We have to really take our responsibility seriously to protect these landscapes that we love.
So it's interesting because Sarisha is working as the global head of sustainable finance, communication, and marketing at BNP Paribas. So basically, she can be a very strong ally from a private sector, from a different set of organizations. So I would like to know if there are questions from the floor. We can keep this very informal. So it's your opportunity. If you have any question to ask, Mohammed.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. I feel like we're coming at home with my family. Mountain advocates and mountain inhabitants. I'm from Morocco, leading Mountain Coalition. And this is what I'm going to say, the message is a plea for all of us to have this collective action, as all of you suggested and recommended. So this collective action, as our distinguished speaker said, it's we, at least, we make this collective feeling and consciousness, and then go out for others who do not care about mountains. I'll tell you a story, a short story about a minister whom we invited for our international forum. He was a minister in the previous government. And when he was talking about what are you doing in the coalition, I said, we have a motion, and it is a motion for mountain law. He said, why do you need a mountain law? And my response is, we need a coast law that you have just in books a few months ago. So coasts matter, but mountains don't. So because they are marginalized and there is less voice which is heard. So we need to make our voice heard, and also within this community, think that alpines matter for us. The Atlas matters for the states, and the Himalaya matter for all of us. This is the feeling that I claim to have, and I solicit this for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think we couldn't agree more. And I see that Gramanos is already looking at you with a lot of interest.
Just to say, I mean, we're here as a Mediterranean Commission, and one member of ours is the Moroccan Climate House. Together with us, we have the former Minister of Environment of Morocco. Come and visit us tomorrow. I will introduce her to you. Thank you.
I'll put you in contact. Okay, good. Any other feedback, comment? Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Geoffrey Mukwada. I'm based in the Free State of South Africa, but I'm in Zimbabwe. I'm a mountain researcher. What I think I must share with you is the importance of collaboration. As I speak here, I want to refer to two important projects that have assisted us in mountain research. And one of them is the University Staff Doctoral Program. And this particular program involves joint supervision of South African PhD students by South African advisors and advisors from United States universities, including University of Montana, Colorado State University, and Appalachian State University. It has been very beneficial. But one thing that we ran into, the difficulty that we ran into was a lack of data about mountain environments. And as a result, we came up with another project. This time it was the project involving Appalachian State University and Development Districts. We call it Mountain Research Projects. And it has been instrumental in building a spatial infrastructure. And this involves the 5 stations of the weather station. And we intend to develop it further. I must say, and thank you to this gentleman who was talking about his country in the United States. It has been instrumental in supporting mountain research. The second project that I'm referring to has actually been funded by the US government through US Embassy in Spain. And I want to invite all of you to work with us in Southern Africa. As I speak here, it's not just about the Drakensberg Mountains where I'm working, but it is about the whole of Southern Africa that is under research. So I'm seeking collaboration. For the importance of mountains to us, we have actually created a special unit at the University of the Free State, we call Afro-Modern Research Unit. You can Google search that, you'll find a lot which is happening already regarding mountain research. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. It would be a pleasure to work more with you, and we can talk later. We have within the Mountain Partnership the African Regional Mountain Forum. Mohammed is and Musa are 2 representatives from that organization, and I heard that they are going to organize a meeting in the coming months. So perhaps this could be an opportunity for you to join and get to know others. But of course, the Afro Mountain and the Mountain Research Institute, of course, they're all opportunities. I see that Gramenos has to go. Okay, thank you, Gramenos. Thank you very much for joining. And I think there was a
Share, I'm not in the circuit anymore, but please share my offer.
Okay, I'll share your email address with whoever is it. And please.
The dialogues at the national level and the regional level. One of the things, again, as Honourable mentioned, is so the mountain cities that also need the adaptation plans right now. So one of the things we've been looking at stuff are also how these city level adaptation plans can be made. Again, whilst the ecosystem level dialogue, national level dialogue, the regional level dialogue is really important to say the cities that can have room for more ambition sometimes and also are at the front line of people facing it. And again, it's not going to be the the Mumbai's or the Karachis, but it's the smaller secondary mountain cities like in the Pamir, like Faro, Seoul, in Pakistan, and things. So, again, so wondering within, for example, school TCTs or other CC level partnerships where more space can be taken in the mountain.
Of course, this is a very important area of work. We have done very well. We mainly work on advocacy and on capacity building. We have some initiative on mountain products, but the issue of mountain cities is something that we haven't really touched in the way it would deserve. We have within FAO a new, very interesting program on greening cities, and we did that process. I know that there was some discussion about greening mountain cities and ensuring the sustainability of these mountain cities. It's in Latin America, there are plenty of mountain cities, towns and cities that, so it's a real, and I'm also in the Alps. So I think it's something that, yes, we would be very happy to consider, and an area of work that we could develop together. And perhaps we can start with a very short policy brief or very short document just to identify the key issues, and then we'll move from there. But we'll be very happy to work on that. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Well, I think we are 6 minutes after our deadline, but if there are other questions, I would be happy to take those. Okay, so now, thank you very much, and it was very good to have this discussion. Thank you very much to all the panelists, to the organizers, and if you need any contact, any follow-up, if you don't have my email, I will be around also tomorrow. And tomorrow there are a number of mountain events. I have the list with me if you want to know. The one I'm very sure about is at 2 o'clock in the Food and Health Pavilion. Is the official celebration of the International Mountain Day, which is taking place tomorrow. So happy International Mountain Day to you all, if I don't see you. And we really look forward, I really look forward to continue working with you all. I was talking on behalf of the Secretariat, but of course, even I personally really look forward to continue this discussion and to build on this momentum, because even if things haven't gone as we had hoped, things are moving. And so thank to all of you. Thank you.